from the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. A reading of articles and features from USA Today, June 2nd. Okay, we're going to start out with the front page. Buy Before You Sell is opening new doors. Innovative mortgage financing could revolutionize the big move. Last year, when Matt Gare and his wife Amber decided to upgrade their condo for a single-family home, they had some advantages. Among the biggest, just enough savings to be able to swing a 10% down payment on a new place without having to sell their current home. Doing so would have wiped out their savings, but it was a fallback option. The couple got lucky, however. They made a contingent offer on a new house that was accepted, mostly because they offered a non-refundable deposit of $5,000, and their condo sold surprisingly quickly, well within the 20 days specified by the contract on the new house. Still, it was super stressful, Gare told USA Today, noting that paying two mortgages at once would have been brutally difficult. Okay, now let's go to page 4 and find out why it would have been brutally difficult. It was dead for 2 weeks. We didn't have a showing. We didn't have a phone call. It was just really stressful for us, even in a situation that was probably better than many people's. First-time home buyers get a lot of attention, but as many real estate agents can attest, lining up all the moving pieces for buyers who are selling at the same time can often be a bigger headache. In 2026, a robot can write a book for you, and SpaceX planning to send people to Mars is in the offing. But the process of buying and selling homes at the same time seems hopelessly past century, not to mention especially hellacious among all the difficult consumer experiences out there. Now a fresh crop of companies aims to smooth these pain points with an approach often referred to as, quote, buy before you sell, unquote. It uses innovative mortgage financing that allows customers to buy and move into a new residence before their current home sells, helping clients turn a page. Todd Glad, a Bay Area mortgage broker, has specialized in such moves for the past several years, says the moment is right and the need is real. Like hundreds of other mortgage professionals across the United States, Glad uses financing options from a company called Fly Homes to enable those transitions. With his clients, especially older adults who may be moving into the last home they'll ever occupy, quote, my story basically is helping them turn the page on this new and exciting chapter in their life, unquote, Glad said. Though there are costs involved in the transactions, clients know that's part of the package when making such a big move, Glad said. The new approaches are valuable for how they ease the process, allowing people to focus on life changes, not the logistics. Changing the way people move. The machinations that go into trying to plan simultaneous transactions can be mind-boggling. Quote, I always tell my clients, plan for A, B, and C, says Jill Comfort, an agent in Phoenix. It might be something as simple as the lender on the house that's being sold wasn't able to get a wire transfer in time, and that delayed the recording of the property. What's plan B? Make sure you have either a hotel or a VRBO or a friend's house, somewhere to stay until the close. And don't try this at the end of the week unless you want to chance being stranded over a weekend, Comfort warned. Fly Homes was founded in 2016, specifically to address the buy before you sell conundrum. CEO Tushar Garg, G-A-R-G, told USA Today, quote, "Our insight was that we could fundamentally change the way people move. The traditional financial system is not set up to simplify that," unquote. Garg believes the frictions we all expect to encounter when we buy and sell aren't just inconvenient, but actually dampen activity in the housing market and stifle mobility. There's data to support that idea. An analysis from Realtor.com for USA Today found roughly 60% of sellers were non-current buyers in 2026. In a housing market where the mortgage rate lock-in effect is still so dominant, these joint buyer-sellers play an important role. Realtor.com economist Jake Krimmel told USA Today, in short, they get markets moving and liquid again. The logistical challenges involved, however, represent a big roadblock to that mobility. In most cases, homeowners who already have a mortgage won't be able to qualify for a second one, even if they think they can stomach the cost. One Fly Homes product, the Guaranteed Backup Contract, is essentially a standing offer from the company to buy the departing home. Having such an offer allows a client to qualify for a mortgage on a new home before even listing the one for sale. In other cases, a homeowner won't be able to even scrape together a down payment on a new property until equity is unlocked from the existing one. Fly Homes and other companies in the space can help with that too. Ashley Shepard, an Atlanta-based loan officer with Fairway Mortgage, specializes in the buy before you sell options from a company called HomeLight. Product from both companies are available only through mortgage professionals and not offered directly to consumers. Most consumers, on being told there's one financing option that can handle the entire process for them, think it's too good to be true, Shepard told USA Today. Quote, "They're like, what's the hook?" Unquote. Shepard ticks off the HomeLight buy before you sell advantages. It allows the client to move to their next home without selling their departing residence. It also allows them to unlock equity, if it's available, to use for a down payment. It allows an agent to structure an offer with no sale contingency, which is what everybody loves. And as the lender, I can omit their first mortgage payment, so I don't have to qualify them for 2 mortgage payments at once. The traditional options. There are, of course, other tried and true options for a simultaneous buying-selling experience beyond just white-knuckling it the way the Daguerres did. Homeowners can choose to tackle the first sale and stay somewhere temporarily until the departing residence has been sold and the money is in the bank. But that often means moving twice, which can add up financially and be a huge hassle. Jen Stanborough, a real estate agent in the Des Moines area, sometimes suggests that clients consider using a home equity loan on the departing residence to finance the new one. But traditional lenders may not be able to handle all the different pieces of a transaction that uses existing equity for a new mortgage. The value proposition of working with a buy before you sell company is that the whole process can be seamless. Another option is bridge loans, which help finance the transition period between the 2 closings. But because such options accrue interest, the longer a borrower holds them, they can get expensive quickly. To some extent, however, What HomeLight and FlyHomes offer is most similar to bridge financing. HomeLight charges a flat fee no matter how long the entire transaction takes. FlyHomes, in many cases, has lower fees, but interest does accrue. The convenience factor is what sets the newcomers apart. Marilyn Smolyanek and her husband Ed have lived in their townhouse in Simpsonville, South Carolina for the past 7 years. Transplants from New Jersey, they appreciated the lower taxes and more affordable cost of living. But the couple, both retirees in their 80s, had their eye on a larger single-family home. They could swing the payments, they discovered. The challenge would be in making the transition work. The Smolyanics found Glade, and he matched them with FlyHomes loans that allowed them to apply funds from the departing home and to present a guaranteed backup contract to the new lender so their existing mortgage could be omitted from the underwriting equation. All told, the couple paid a little more than $7,000 for the experience. The process was, quote, much easier, unquote, than their experience moving from New Jersey to South Carolina, Marilyn told USA Today. She and Ed appreciated how Glade held their hand throughout the process and smoothed over the bumps. In the end, aligning a home purchase with a simultaneous sale is always likely to be stressful, Stanborough said. The most important step consumers can take is to run through all the options with trusted real estate professionals and then take a deep breath. Quote, it's just a lot. It's a big transaction, she said, unquote. Don't underestimate the emotional load that comes with both buying and selling a home at once, and just give yourself some grace for that. Okay. U.S.-Iran talks hit another obstacle. Stall comes after Israel widens Lebanon attack. This is written by Christopher Can, C-A-N-N. Iran halted indirect talks with the United States over Israel's intensifying military campaign in Lebanon, according to Iranian media reports, signaling a possible breakdown in diplomatic efforts to end the 3-month-old war. The Iranian semi-official Tasnim news agency said on June 1st that Tehran's negotiating team would stop communicating with Washington through mediators in protest of Israel's widening ground invasion and bombardment of Lebanon, where it is battling Iran-backed Hezbollah. The reported breakdown comes after President Donald Trump and his top cabinet officials expressed optimism about a possible deal to end the conflict, which has killed thousands across the Middle East and surged global energy prices. In an early morning social media post, Trump said, quote, Iran really wants to make a deal, and it will be a good one for the USA, unquote. The White House has not commented on the reported breakdown in talks. Iranian officials have not publicly confirmed a halt in negotiations. Over the weekend, tensions between the United States and Iran escalated after the two countries traded a fresh round of airstrikes. The U.S. military said it carried out, quote, self-defense, unquote, strikes on Iranian radar and drone sites after Tehran shot down an American drone. Iran said it targeted an airbase used by American forces. You're listening to a reading of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghali accused Washington on June 1st of shifting its negotiating positions and condemned what he described as U.S. aggression. The country's top diplomat, Abbas Araghchi, also accused Israel of violating the terms of the truce as it intensifies attacks on southern Lebanon in its war against Iran-backed Hezbollah. Violation on one front is a violation of the ceasefire on all fronts, Minister of Foreign Affairs Araghchi wrote on X. The U.S. and Israel are responsible for consequences of any violation, end quote. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on June 1st that he had ordered attacks on Hezbollah-controlled suburbs of Beirut, Lebanon's capital. Israel's military has also expanded its ground invasion of southern Lebanon, where it has established a buffer zone, forcing hundreds of thousands from their homes and destroying villages near the Israeli northern border. Israel launched the ground invasion after Hezbollah attacked a country in support of Iran. Despite a ceasefire struck between the Lebanese government and Israel, Hezbollah and the Israeli military have continued to trade strikes and rocket fire, threatening negotiations between Washington and Tehran. Since the war began February 28th, thousands of people in Iran and Lebanon have been killed, according to the country's respective health ministries. Israel says 23 of its soldiers and 4 civilians have been killed over the same period. 13 U.S. service members have died in the conflict. Iran has maintained its grip on the Strait of Hormuz, where 1/5 of the world's oil and natural gas flows. The conflict has become an increasingly unpopular one in the United States as Americans face higher prices at the pump. Average U.S. gas prices were at $4.32 a gallon as of June 1st, according to the AAA. Okay. Democrats have set a, quote, bullseye on Iowa. Solid Republican state seen as ripe for gains. Des Moines, for a ruby red state controlled at nearly every level by GOP elected officials, Iowa Republicans are usually nervous going into the 2026 midterm election season. Unusually nervous. The state has open races for governor and U.S. Senate, and it will see 2 of its 4 U.S. House races heavily targeted as pickup opportunities for Democrats. The governor's race in particular has unsettled Republicans, as well as well-funded, well-liked Democratic State Auditor Bob Sand marshals a formidable campaign infrastructure, while Republicans fight out a divisive 5-way primary race. The field will be set in the state's primary elections Tuesday, June 2nd. National leaders of both parties see Iowa as a potential key to either holding or reversing national control of Congress, and Democrats hope to reclaim ground with rural voters in a state that has consistently trended red. The Democrats have put a bullseye on the state of Iowa. Texas U.S. Senator Ted Cruz warned Iowa Republicans at a rally May 2nd in suburban Des Moines. Cruz said Democrats believe they can swing control of the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate from Republicans just by flipping seats in Iowa, quote, and they're probably right about that, he said, unquote. National midterm trends favor Democrats as polling shows voters souring on Republican President Donald Trump. Gas prices skyrocket amid the war with Iran, and the cost of living remains high. In Iowa, the state has taken additional hits as trade wars and high costs threaten a renewed farm crisis in the state's agricultural economy. But it will be a tough road for Democrats in the Hawkeye state, even if the midterms stars align in their favor. Registered Republican voters outnumbered registered Democrats in Iowa by nearly 200,000, and Republicans have dominated recent election cycles in the state. Trump carried Iowa by about 13 percentage points in 2024, and Republicans hold all 6 seats in Congress, both chambers of the state legislature, and every statewide elected official but one. We have the record, we have the numbers. Republican Governor Kim Reynolds, who is not seeking another term, said at an event in March with the Polk County GOP, "If we show up, we will win." One of the most closely watched primary races in Iowa is the Democratic contest for the U.S. Senate. Republican incumbent U.S. Senator Joni Ernst announced last year that she would not run in 2026, leaving the seat open and stoking Democrats' hopes for reclaiming it. A Democrat has not held a U.S. Senate seat in Iowa since longtime Senator Tom Harkin retired in 2015. 2 Democrats, State Republican Josh Turek and State Senator Zach Wahls, hope to change that. Both are running aggressive primary campaigns, each arguing he is more electable a candidate in the general election. Turek of Council Bluff touts his grit on the campaign trail. Growing up with spina bifida, Turek endured 21 surgeries before age 12 and went on to become a gold medal winning Paralympian representing Team USA in wheelchair basketball. He says he's, quote, battle-tested after winning his Iowa House seat in a western Iowa district that Trump carried. Quote, "I went out and I crawled stairs and I knocked doors, dragging my wheelchair up there to have a conversation with every single person in the community. That didn't matter. Democrats, independents, Republicans. Talked to them all and talked about the issues they cared about, and I won my first election by just 6 votes." Excuse me. Wahls of Coralville says he's motivated voters by taking on a corrupt political system rigged in favor of billionaires and corporations at the expense of the middle class. He rose to political prominence after giving a speech at age 19 on the Iowa House floor defending his 2 mothers' right to marry. Iowans want a fighter who has that courage to challenge a broken system and the status quo that is failing our state. I think that's the core contrast in this race for Democratic primary voters, Wahls said. I'm willing to fight back against an establishment that has failed Iowans over and over again. Representative Turek is being supported by that establishment, unquote. The candidates share similar views across a range of issues, although Turek cuts more moderate image while Wahls leans more progressive, a dynamic that echoes Democratic primaries across the country this year. One point of contention: Wahls has said he will not vote for Senator Chuck Schumer as Senate Democratic leader if elected, and has called on Turek, whom he has criticized for being too closely aligned with the Democratic political establishment to do the same. I've called on Josh Turek to join me in rejecting outside spending in this race and rejecting Chuck Schumer's leadership. He's refused, Walz said. If he doesn't have the courage to take on the failed leaders in our own party, he won't be able to take on Donald Trump either, unquote. Turek said in a debate on May 5th that he is, quote, not a D.C. insider. I don't know these folks, he said. I only have one idea in this, and that is I am not measuring the drapes. But at the perception that outside forces are working hard to shape this race has rattled some Iowa Democrats. Vote Vets, an outside group that has aligned with Senate Democratic leaders but denies any coordination in Iowa's race, has spent $10 million on television and digital advertising and direct mail to support Turek since March 23rd, according to reports with the Federal Election Commission. Although Turek is not a veteran, he believes his spina bifida was caused by his father's exposure to Agent Orange while serving in Vietnam. The $10 million figure has dwarfed what the candidates themselves have raised and spent and could dramatically shape the race's outcome. Turek and Walz have raised $3.5 million and $3.7 million, respectively. The winner of Tuesday's primary is expected to take on Republican U.S. Representative Ashley Hinson. Hinson announced her Senate campaign just hours after Ernst said she would not seek re-election. She quickly secured major endorsements from Iowa political leaders as well as from Trump. She faces a primary from former Senator Jim Carlin, although she is heavily favored to win. Both national both national parties have signaled their intentions to invest heavily in the state as it moves into the general election, an indication of Iowa's importance, the party's overall strategies. The Republican-aligned Senate Leadership Fund said it will spend $28 million on behalf of Hinson, while the Democrat-aligned Senate Majority PAC plans to spend $13.4 million in Iowa. A toss-up in government contest. Nonpartisan election analysis at the Cook Political Report have labeled Iowa's governor's race a toss-up, unquote, moving it into the most competitive category the organization tracks. The battle for Iowa's governorship is officially a barn burner, wrote Matthew Klein, analysis who focuses on gubernatorial contests. Sand, the Democratic state auditor, has energized Iowa voters and garnered national media buzz as he assembles what Iowa Democrats and Republicans alike say is a strong campaign operation. He started early and aggressively, competing a 100-stop public town hall tour before presumed the GOP frontrunner, U.S. Republican Representative Andy Feenstra, formally got into the race. Sands plans another 100-stop for this summer, arguing the effort will help raise his profile among prospective voters, especially in the small towns and rural areas that have abandoned Democrats in recent election cycles. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 29 minutes and Whoop, already 30 minutes, sorry. Now we're going to switch over from politics to money. Switching jobs pays off while young. Job switchers saw wages grow around 8%. If you haven't got much of a pay rate increase recently and are wondering whether it would be worthwhile to jump ship for a chance at better wages, Bank of America said you should go for it if you're young. Millennials who switched companies saw after-tax wages grow twice as fast compared with those who stood still, bank data showed. Gen Zers did even better. The rate of earnings growth increased fourfold, it said. Although the pay increases job switchers may receive are significantly smaller than they were during the Great Resignation in 2022 after the COVID-19 pandemic. Bank of America said in a research note that this is still a sign, quote, the labor market may be gradually improving. If the labor market continues to recover, we might see some increase in the pay premium for switching jobs, especially given the premium is currently lower than it was pre-pandemic, the bank said. How much more can people expect to earn from switching jobs? Overall, job switchers saw after-tax and benefit wages grow 8%, better than the 5% increase by those who stayed in the first 3 months of this year from last year, Bank of America said. But the gap between the two is the smallest in 7 years. In contrast, when there was a labor shortage in 2022 because Americans were slow to return to work after the pandemic, workers were lured by nearly 18% pay jumps from the prior year for leaving their companies, compared with the 7% increase non-switchers received, the bank said. Does the job hopping pay more for some than others? Because Gen Zers are seeing the largest pay increase from job switching, it may not be surprising that they also have the highest rate of job switching. 1 in 4 changed companies in the first 3 months of this year, Bank of America said. That's more than 10 percentage points higher than millennials and more than 3 times the rate of baby boomers, but sharply lower than in 2022, data showed. Older Americans, Gen X, and baby boomers were better off staying put in their jobs, the bank said. They saw flat or declining changes in pay from a, 1 second, let me turn the page. Year earlier, while workers in those groups who remained in their jobs saw steady pay increases, research showed. Some people in this generation may be taking similar or lower earnings as some are choosing to work less hours, perhaps as they approach retirement, Bank of America said. It could also be that some have taken lower pay after being laid off or fired. Switching jobs also didn't pay for top earners, the bank said. Instead, quote, for this group, it appears that loyalty pays, it said. In the first 3 months of the year, those in the top 5% by income were the only group where job stayers saw the stronger wage growth than job switchers, Bank of America said. In fact, the pay premium for switching jobs has declined the most for higher income households, especially those in the top 5% over the past 4 years, it said. The drop could be a result of the general slowdown in higher paying industries like finance, information technology, and professional business services. For example, those who lost their jobs may have to settle for a for less in a tighter job market, while those who remained are now seeing larger pay raises, Bank of America said. It could also be that in a low-fire environment, companies feel they have less reason to pay a premium to job switchers. Okay. And now we'll go back to the front finance page and read Struggling to Keep Up. Buying a home feels affordable to Americans, but so is owning a home, especially among seniors, data shows. 54% of the nation's 35 million mortgage-free homeowners are age 65 or older, a group that represents just over a third of all U.S. homeowners, according to a housing research firm, Resi Club, RESI Club. Among the population, roughly 64% of their homes they own outright. Yet, a record 12.5 million senior households, or more than a third of the population, ages 65 and older, may be feeling house poor or spending a disproportionately large percentage of their monthly income on housing costs, data shows. In 2024, they spent more than 30% of their income on housing, and half of them spent more than 50%, the U.S. Census data shows. The government's general rule of thumb is to spend no more than 30% of gross income on housing, including rent or mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, and utilities, to avoid being cost-burdened. Since 2019, older adult households also made up roughly half of all newly cost-burdened households, according to the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies. That's a sign that housing affordability challenges don't disappear at retirement age and can be extra problematic for older adults on fixed incomes, wrote Christine Healy, head of brand at CareScout, in a report. Even seniors who did everything right aren't safe, she wrote. For homeowners who paid off their mortgages entirely, median housing costs still have climbed 35% since 2019, about 1.5 times faster than their incomes grew. What's causing the housing squeeze for seniors? About every expense related to housing has skyrocketed since the pandemic, faster than the 28.67% overall pace of inflation. That makes it harder for seniors, even those without a mortgage, to keep up, experts said. For instance, rent since the pandemic has increased 36.2% nationally, according to property listings company Zillow's March report. And median property taxes rose about 30% from 2019 to 2024, the nonprofit Tax Policy Center said. Home insurance premiums surged 40.4% from 2019 to 2024, according to the rate comparison site LendingTree. Electricity prices soared 40% from 2020 to 2025, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. These staggering increases have proved insurmountable for many Americans, but no group has been more impacted than seniors, especially those on fixed incomes, Healy said. Property taxes, utilities, and insurance are now eating away at their savings. And unlike younger Americans, many seniors simply can't take on a second job or trade up to a higher salary to compensate. Suffering differs geographically. Seniors are being hit harder in some places than more than others, according to an analysis by the long-term care solutions company CareScout that looked at the share of seniors who spend 30% of their income on housing, real estate taxes, home insurance, electric bills, assisted living costs, and more across the United States. Seniors are most likely to be cost burdened in California and least so in West Virginia, which was helped by having the nation's lowest property taxes, $881, and the smallest share of households facing high insurance costs. 10.2% pay $2,000 or more, CareScout said. How can seniors cope? Preparing early is always the best way to avoid a housing squeeze, says Steve Azzurri, a chartered financial consultant and owner of Azzurri Financial. He suggested, look at what your sources of income are to pay expenses and how long they'll last, even with some annual inflation. If applicable, consider a scenario in which one spouse dies and how taxes, home insurance, and other expenses will be paid. Check for local property tax breaks and other benefits for seniors. More than 900 eligible seniors are missing out More than 9 million eligible seniors are missing out on $58 billion in benefits, according to the National Council of Aging. The organization's benefits check tool can show you what you may be missing. For surviving spouses, nonprofit organizations such as Wings for Widows can help navigate new financial challenges. Consider downsizing sooner and invest some of the money to be used for income later. Married couples filing jointly who have lived in the home as a primary residence for a while can exclude up to $500,000 of capital gains from selling the home. If a spouse dies, that exclusion drops in half 2 years after the spouse's death. Buy whole life insurance while you're young if a spouse dies. The surviving spouse receives an immediate, tax-free lump sum payment that's not subject to stock market movements and comes in handy when needed, he said. Some of the money can be used to pay expenses and the rest invested to generate income. Consider renting out a room in your house to earn extra income. If you love and want to keep your house, consider a reverse mortgage if you can't afford monthly home equity loan payments. Reverse mortgages once earned a bad reputation for predatory lending practices, high upfront fees, and a lack of consumer protections. But they're more regulated now. Reverse mortgages are insured by the Federal Housing Administration as a standardized government-insured loan option with defined guidelines and borrower protections. Quote, you can get money to use for income that's paid each month, Azzurri said. You still own the house and pay the taxes, utilities, insurance, and upkeep. But now you have a little extra money. You have the option to stay in your house until you die, or you can sell it and pay off what you owe. This is just another quick reminder. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 44 minutes and 49 seconds after the hour. Sorry for all the coughing. Now we'll go back to the front financial page and see what's being written about. Before Amazon, there was the general store. Long before growing storefronts, crowded shopping malls, and overnight deliveries became the norm, everyday commerce in America moved at a much slower, more intimate pace. General stores found in cities like Philadelphia and Boston as early as the 1770s soon spread into smaller towns across New England and eventually westward, says Nancy Cohn, a historian and the James E. Robinson Chair of Business Administration at Harvard Business School. Often no larger than a single room, they nonetheless held a world of necessity. Shelves lined with baking ingredients, bolts of fabric, tinware, nails, and jars of penny candy created a patchwork of textures and smells ranging from molasses and leather to spices and tobacco smoke. Cracker barrels, large wooden containers that once stored crackers for shipping and later became centerpieces of spontaneous gatherings within these shops, along with cast iron stoves in colder months, drew people in not just for goods but for warmth and company. Indeed, these spaces shaped not only how people purchased essentials, but also how they came together, shared news, and built communities. More than a store, the social and economic lifeblood of early America. General stores initially existed to supply rural Americans with the goods they could not produce themselves. Shoppers came for such staples as flour, sugar, and salt, tools and hardware, fabric and clothing, kerosene for lamps, and occasional small luxuries like candy, tobacco, and coffee, items otherwise difficult or impossible to obtain. Cohn says, such items were available because the proprietor of a general store was the connection between urban production and rural consumption, says Wendy Wolowson, a history professor at Rutgers University, Camden, and author of, quote, In Hoc, Pawning in America, from Independence to the Great Depression. To accomplish this, she notes, storekeepers typically traveled to cities once or twice a year or even quarterly to gather supplies to restock their shelves. This mattered because while residents in larger towns had access to more specialized shops, general stores were indispensable in the rural areas where most Americans lived. As late as 1870, only 1 in 4 Americans lived in a community with more than 2,500 residents, says Mark Levinson, a historian and author of The Great A&P and the Struggle for Small Business in America. But these stores were far more than retail spaces. They also functioned as informal town squares, though women often visited less frequently because of distance and travel constraints, and the fact that early retail environments were not designed with them in mind, Cohn says. Most men at least occasionally patronized general stores, and many of them did so frequently. Quote, they would gather around the Cracker Barrel, smoke, share news, debate politics, and exchange stories, she says. General stores were the hubs of information and civic life. They sold books and newspapers, posted local notices, hosted conversations about current events, and sometimes even served as polling places for elections. Many general stores also doubled as post offices or stagecoach stops, which brought people into the store and provided the owners with an additional source of revenue, Levinson says. This is also a reason other early businesses usually sprang up nearby, and why main streets in small towns so often centered on general stores. Economically, these shops were just as vital, sometimes even functioning as early banks or credit unions. For instance, in cash-poor farming regions, storekeepers often extended credit, allowing customers to purchase goods before harvest. The proprietor would often also accept things like eggs, butter, or even handmade goods in exchange for their inventory. Wolfson says, in short, she says, the general store was a place where social and economic networks were created and reinforced. Catalogs technology brought an end to an era. Though general stores helped establish centralized commerce in the towns they served in critical ways, their evolution into modern retail formats was anything but linear. Broader societal changes eventually would challenge the traditional general store, but even when those shops were most essential, they struggled. Inventory often sat unsold for long stretches, tying up capital and leading to expired food, which reduced profitability. Because shopping could often be sporadic, many general stores struggled to survive, Cohn said. Then broader structured changes and urbanization imperiled them even more. As transportation networks expanded, first with canals and turnpikes, and later with railroads, rural isolation began to fade. This, combined with the growth of cities, allowed consumers to access to a wider range of specialized retailers. Eventually, customers could shop at shoe stores, hardware stores, and cigar stores rather than at a general store with a smaller selection of each, Levinson says. New retail formats intensified competition. Cheap goods or variety stores offered low-cost, fast-moving items that appealed to a growing consumer culture. Department stores, which emerged in the mid-19th century, catered to middle-class shoppers with higher-end goods and a more curated experience, one that increasingly welcomed and marketed to women as primary consumers. Perhaps the most transformative shift, however, came with the catalog retailing, which began with the launch of the U.S. Parcel Post System in 1913. That service made it possible to deliver goods directly to rural households at relatively low costs. Companies including Sears Roebuck and Company and Montgomery Ward quickly capitalized on the opportunity, allowing customers to browse hundreds of items conveniently and at their leisure. Over time, even catalog retailing gave way to newer forms of convenience. Consumers increasingly turned to supermarkets, big box retailers, and eventually e-commerce platforms and digital storefronts, where vast inventories, lower prices, and near instant delivery became the norm. Do general stores exist today? Such forces brought an end to traditional general stores, though some modern businesses adopt the name or aesthetic to tap into nostalgia. Cohn points to the restaurant and retail chain Cracker Barrel Old Country Store as one example of a chain that evokes the history of directly referencing the barrels that once served as general store social hubs. The original model and reasons for the shops to exist has largely disappeared. There are few, if any, true general stores left in the traditional sense, she said. But some of the retailers that ultimately replace the general store have some features in common with their Main Street predecessors. I'd say the current version of a general store would be something like Walmart, which provides seemingly everything a household might need, but with far more choice, Wolfson says. Chains like Walmart, Dollar General, and Family Dollar share another similarity with general stores of old. While common in large cities as well, they often establish themselves in small rural communities. What's still missing? The sense of community that once defined these spaces beyond the checkout counter. Because even in the smallest towns, Walmart and the like are not quite retail town squares as general stores used to be, Wolfson says. For the kind of gossip, news sharing, and exchange of opinions and ideas that once took place in these intimate settings, she said, the country now looks to the expansive world of social media. Price index. April inflation, sorry for rattling this paper, is near a 3-year high. Fed's favored indicator rose 3.8% year over year. The first inflation report released since Kevin Warsh was sworn in as chair of the Federal Reserve confirmed what most Americans already know. Costs are still going up, and the central bank's largest challenge may be those rising prices. The Fed's favored inflation indicator, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, rose 3.8 year over year in April, the Commerce Department said May 28th. That reading is nearly in line with forecasters' expectations and represents the highest annual increase since May of 2023. It's up from 3.5% in March and from 2.9% in February, before the start of the Iran war, which has resulted in supply chain disruptions that have driven up the cost of some goods and sent prices at the gas pump soaring. The department estimated core PCE, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, rose 3.3% year over year in April, still well above the Fed's 2% target. Why does the inflation marker matter for the Fed? The Fed typically raises its benchmark interest rate to help curb inflation by making borrowing more expensive, and it lowers it to stimulate economic growth and hiring. Concerns about stagnation in the job market prompted policymakers to cut rates 3 times last year, but they have remained on the sidelines so far in 2026. As a nominee, Warsh appeared to support lowering borrowing costs, but the former Fed governor has rejoined the central bank at a time when the U.S. job market is experiencing growth. The Labor Department estimates employers added 115,000 jobs in April and an upwardly revised 185% in March. Though much of those gains are concentrated in a few select sectors, such as healthcare, those two reports prompted some cautious optimism about hiring picking back up in 2026. At the same time, the Commerce Department also on May 28th revised down its initial estimate for economic growth in the first quarter of 2026. It estimates U.S. gross domestic product increased 1.6% over the year's last quarter, a rate of 0.4% lower than its advance estimate last month. We are far from stagflation, but rising inflation coupled with slowing growth is the opposite of what we want in both dimensions. Chris Zaccarelli, Chief Investment Officer for Northlight Asset Management said in a note to USA.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Barbara. Sports. Carolina, Vegas match up closely. The Vegas Golden Knights were the 2023 Stanley Cup champions, so it stands that they have a lot of championship round experience. The Carolina Hurricanes haven't been to the Stanley Cup final since they won it all in 2006, so it stands that they don't. The Golden Knights have 13 players with Stanley Cup titles, including key players Jack Eichel, Mark Stone, Ivan Barbashev, and Shea Theodore. The Hurricanes have two: Captain Jordan Staal, he won in 2009, and William Carrier, won with Vegas in 2023. How are the teams faring in this postseason? The Golden Knights 4-0 versus Colorado Avalanche, and Hurricanes 4-1 versus the Montreal Canadiens are in the final after dominant performances in the conference finals. How they size up. Offense. The Golden Knights have the playoffs' top scorers in Mitch Marner and Jack Eichel, and two 10-goal scorers in Pavel Dorofeyev and Brett Howden. Mark Stone is back from an injury. The Hurricanes have the hottest line in the playoffs with Logan Stankoven, Taylor Hall, and Jackson Blake. The Sebastian Aho line hasn't broken through yet in the playoffs. If it does, this is a different series, but for now it hasn't. The edge goes to the Golden Knights. Defense. The Golden Knights push teams to the outside and block shots. The Hurricanes make it difficult to get out of the zone. Carolina's Jacob Slavin is one of the best shutdown defensemen in the league. Keandre Miller was a solid off-season addition who has a league best +14 ±. Sean Walker is at +13. Hurricanes defensemen have better puck possession numbers than the Golden Knights do. Vegas gets better offense numbers from the blue line. Shea Theodore, 4 goals, 11 points, is the top scoring defenseman in the series, but also averages 4.12 giveaways per 60 minutes. The edge goes to the Hurricanes. Goaltending. Carolina's Frederik Andersen gave up 8 goals in the 2 losses in the season series, but he is a changed goalie since the playoffs began. His regular season goals against average was 3.05, and now it's 1.44. Vegas's Carter Hart, who faces more shots, is at 2.22. MoneyPuck.com lists Anderson's goals saved above expected at 11.5, compared with Hart's 7.7. Anderson is motivated to win for his agent, Claude Lemieux, the 4-time Cup winner who died May 28th. Edge, the Hurricanes. Coaching, Vegas's John Tortorella won a Stanley Cup with the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2004, but hasn't been back to the final since. Rod Brind'Amour hasn't won a cup as a coach, but did as captain of the Hurricanes in 2006. Tortorella gets kudos for turning around the team after it fired coach Bruce Cassidy with 8 games left in the season, and for sweeping the powerhouse Avalanche in a series involving 2 comebacks. Brind'Amour gets kudos for his video session after the Game 1 loss to the Canadiens. The Hurricanes emerged as a different-looking team and dominated Montreal territorially for 4 games in a row to close out the series. Edge the Hurricanes. Special teams. Vegas power play clicks at 23.9%. The Hurricanes 12.5%. But Carolina have a better penalty kill, 92.5%, than the Golden Knights at 87.5%. Edge, they're even. Prediction, Hurricanes in 6 games. Serena Williams doubles up ahead of Wimbledon. Serena Williams' evolution is bringing her back to the tennis court. Williams will play doubles at the HSBC Championships, a warm-up for Wimbledon. The tournament confirmed June 1st. It will be her first match in almost 4 years. Williams has not played since the 2022 U.S. Open, saying in August of that year that she was evolving away from tennis. The HSBC Championships, also known as Queen's Club, begins June 8th in London. It wasn't immediately clear who Williams will play with. She is a 14-time Grand Slam doubles champion and 3-time Olympic gold medalist in doubles. Those titles were won with her sister, Venus. Queen's Club feels like the perfect place to begin this next chapter. Serena Williams said in the tournament's release announcing her return, "Grass has given me some of the most meaningful moments of my career, and I'm excited to be back competing as one of the sport's most iconic stages." Several outlets reported that Williams's partner would be Canadian Victoria Mboko, currently ranked number 9 in the world in singles. Asked last week at the French Open about the potential partnership, Mboko said that was an announcement for Williams to make. "I feel like if she's ready to come back on her own terms, then I feel like it's up to her to announce that. But other than that, I don't really have much to say," Mboko said. "The moment is all up to her." All tournaments, the majors included, reserve a few spots in the draw for wild cards, which can be given to up-and-comers, local players, or, in Williams's case, a returning star. When Williams returned in the summer of 2022, after a year-long absence following a leg injury, she was given a wild card into Wimbledon. Williams would no doubt get another wild card from Wimbledon if she wants to play this year. Any tournament would be happy to have the 23-time Grand Slam champion, who remains one of the biggest names in all of sports. Indeed, Wimbledon's response to the video Williams posted confirming her return was notable. Serena back on grass, Wimbledon wrote, adding a green heart emoji. All eyes had been on Williams. Williams' future has been the source of much speculation in recent months. The 44-year-old raised eyebrows last fall when she rejoined the International Tennis Integrity Agency's drug testing pool, a requirement to play again. She had revealed in August she'd lost 31 pounds after going on a GLP-1 drug and credited the medication with finally helping relieve the joint pain she'd had since having her first daughter, Olympia, in 2017. But Williams shot down the idea of a comeback, calling it wildfire. OMG, y'all, I'm not coming back. This wildfire is crazy, Williams wrote on X on December 2nd. Williams had to be in the pool for 6 months to be eligible again. According to the ITIA's website, she was reinstated February 2nd of this year. Williams dodged additional questions about her return, but the rumors gained new steam in March when Alicia Parks posted video of her practicing with Williams. Parks then told the Tennis Channel they were hitting together about 3 times a week. But if Williams was to play this summer, she had to make an announcement soon. On Monday, she confirmed her return with an Instagram post with longtime sponsor Nike. In the video, Williams is practicing on the tennis court, but walks to her bag after hearing her phone repeatedly buzzing and ringing. Guess everybody heard the news, flashes across the screen as Williams is heard saying, "I've got to change my number." Good news travels fast, Williams wrote on the post. A reacquaintance from a long ago yesteryear. The Spurs beat the Knicks for their first title in 1999. Who has the edge today? The San Antonio Spurs will take on the New York Knicks in the NBA Finals. It will be a rematch of the 1999 NBA Finals when the Spurs beat the Knicks 4-1. It was the Spurs' first championship and New York's last finals appearance. Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs advanced to the finals after winning the Western Conference Finals in Game 7 on May 30th. Wembanyama led the way with 20-plus points in each of the 7 games against the Oklahoma City Thunder. It will be the Western Conference Finals MVP's first trip to the NBA Finals, following a season in which the projection of his career was in jeopardy after being diagnosed with deep vein thrombosis, a condition that involves blood clots. It will also be Jalen Brunson's first finals appearance. Brunson averaged 26 points and 6.8 assists for the Knicks this season. The Spurs and the Knicks played a 2-game series during the regular season, with each team winning a game. Here's who has the edge in the NBA Finals Series. Backcourt. The Knicks will have the advantage in the backcourt because of Jalen Brunson's until proven otherwise. The Spurs' backcourt, led by Stephen Castle and veteran De'Aaron Fox did show they have the defensive mindset and scheme to stop a player of Brunson's caliber after leaving Shaq Gilgeous Alexander, the back-to-back league MVP, frustrated at times during the Western Conference Finals. Edge goes to the Knicks. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. Front court. Victor Wembanyama presents a problem for any team in the league because of his length and playmaking ability. The Western Conference Finals MVP has averaged 23.2 points and 10.8 rebounds in 17 games during this postseason. Karl Anthony Towns leads a talented backcourt for the Knicks that will have the opportunity to cause problems for Wemby and the Spurs. KAT has averaged 16.9 points, 10.6 rebounds, and 5.9 assists for New York in its 14 postseason games. Edge goes to the Spurs. Bench. The Knicks have several complementary players coming off the bench. Josh Hart is a versatile rotation player in the front court who has displayed the ability to play with physicality on the defense and serve as a solid rebounder. Mitchell Robinson has a broken finger but still expects to play in the finals. He serves as another quality reserve off the bench who can serve as a rim protector and rebounder for the Knicks' interior defense. Keldon Johnson is the primary reserve for San Antonio, serving as a versatile wing when his number is called. Dylan Harper may only be a rookie, but he has really stepped up when needed for the Spurs in that position. He has proved he can score and be a playmaker for his team when he has the ball in his hands. Edge, the Knicks. Coaching. Knicks coach Mike Brown has the advantage in finals experience. Brown led LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers to the NBA Finals against the Spurs in 2007. He has spent time as an assistant coach for 2 championship teams. He won 3 titles under Steve Kerr with the Golden State Warriors and another in 2003 under Greg Popovich with the Spurs. It will be the first finals appearance for Mitch Johnson as a head coach. Edge, the Knicks. X factors. It's hard to ignore what impacted It's hard to ignore what impact Robinson can have on the Knicks when he is healthy. Robinson has great size and a defensive presence that could prove to be valuable. He can control the paint and secure offensive rebounds, which may prove to be helpful when the Spurs have Wemby on the floor. Julian Champagnie's supplementary scoring has proved to be important during the postseason. He played a key role in the Spurs' Game 7 victory over the Thunder with 20 points and 6 rebounds. Edge goes to the Knicks. White Sox keep climbing with strong May. It is June and the Chicago White Sox are a game out of first place. Is this really happening? The franchise that lost 121 games 2 years ago, that lost 102 games last season, just finished a month in which it won 18 of 28 games and capped it by sweeping the American League Central's overwhelming favorite, sending the Detroit Tigers further to a summer of irrelevance. Yes, things are a little upside down, and the White Sox climb of 7 spots to number 9 in USA Today's Sports MLB Power Rankings reflects that. They rallied to beat the Tigers thanks in part to Colson Montgomery's 15th home run, his 36th since the 2025 All-Star break. Only Kyle Schwarber has more. They'll get a look at Schwarber this weekend when they travel to Philadelphia with a 3-game set at Minnesota before then. Our updated rankings. Number 1, Atlanta Browns. 60 games in and still on a 108 win pace. Los Angeles Dodgers. Top prospect Jose DePaula on a 20-for-37 tear at Class AA. Will he figure into 2026's plans? 3, Tampa Bay Rays. Shane McClanahan almost all the way back, 4-0 with a 1.41 ERA in May. New York Yankees. Can Anthony Volpe sustain his production and truly, fully, really reclaim the shortstop job? 5, Milwaukee Brewers. Just a mistastic May. 5-0. 0.23 ERA. Franchise record 57 strikeouts in a month. 6, the Cleveland Guardians. Tanner Beebe, first pitcher in Cleveland's 125-year history to go winless in his first 13 starts. 7, San Diego Padres. Affable Craig Stammen earns his first ejection ever as a player or a manager. 8, St. Louis Cardinals. Getting swept in Milwaukee taps the brakes on this joyride just a bit. 9, Chicago White Sox. Roche Chalowski's season is over, so the White Sox are truly on the clock at number 1. 10, the Chicago Cubs. Suddenly look like the third best team in National League Central. Pittsburgh Pirates, number 11. Carmen Mlodzinski harshes the vibe of Jared Jones' long-awaited return. 12, Seattle Mariners. And away they go. 13, Arizona Diamondbacks. Getting swept by the Mariners, not the ideal appetizer before the Dodgers come to town. 14, Cincinnati Reds. A collective Queen City gasp as Eli De La Cruz exits with hamstring issue. 15, Philadelphia Phillies. Nick Castellanos makes Philly return this week. 16, Athletics. As it gets hotter in Yolo County, home team starting to melt just a little bit. 17, Washington Nationals. This over .500 thing just might be permanent. 18, Toronto Blue Jays. Last thing they needed was an outfielder injured by an opposing fan. 19, Baltimore Orioles. 3 walk-offs in 6 days, a nice vibe shift. 20, Texas Rangers. Corey Seager set to begin rehab assignment this week. 21, Minnesota Twins. Bailey Ober, Zebby Matthews combined to give up 15 runs in consecutive starts. Ober hits injured list with elbow inflammation. 22. Houston Astros pulled within 6 games of .500 for the first time since April 22nd. 23. The New York Mets. Swept by Marlins a week ago, they returned the favor, but treading water won't get them out of this quagmire. 24. Miami Marlins. Josh White strikes out first batter in Major League debut, gives up grand slam 5 batters later. 25. Kansas City Royals have been swept 4 times since May 10th. 26. The Boston Red Sox. Jarren Duran blasted 9 homers in May. 27. The Detroit Tigers. When you go 1-5 against Angels and White Sox, does it matter when Tarek Skubal comes back? 28. The San Francisco Giants. Rafael Devers' OPS climbs to .732. 29. Los Angeles Angels. Jack Kokonowitz has 9.27 ERA in last 5 starts. 30. The Colorado Rockies. Top prospect Ethan Holiday expected to miss rest of the season with stress reaction to left foot. Commentary. Untraded Abrams sparks surprise Nationals. The Washington Nationals planned to trade him. They let everyone know he was available. If someone was willing to meet their price, 25-year-old shortstop C.J. Abrams was all theirs. No one made an offer compelling enough to entice Paul Tubani, Nationals president of baseball operations, to move him. But instead of Abrams pouting when he arrived to spring training, he actually felt invigorated. The key was the communication between Tubani and Abrams. Tubani was upfront with Abrams, telling him that they set a high bar for rivals if they wanted him. But if anything ever got close, he promised to let him know. And if Abrams had any questions or wanted to confirm or dispel rumors, please call. It meant a lot, Abrams told USA Today Sports. I was able to ignore things out of there because I was in communication with Paul. Said Tubani, that's something I tried doing with starter Mackenzie Gore too, and going forward I will keep doing that. They deserve to be in the know. I've come to realize that in most cases it's not the fear of being traded, but what mostly bothers players is being completely in the dark. I never met a player or a coach or a front office guy who was too transparent. I told both of them, if there's something out there that just isn't true, I'll let you know. And if you have any questions and there is some truth, we'll talk about it. Tubani said, I told Mackenzie there's a world where you're traded and a world you're not. We think super highly of you, so they don't have to clear a really high bar. They'd have to clear a really high bar. If a team surpassed it, well, we'll consider it. If not, you'll be here. The Texas Rangers met it, sending 5 prospects for Gore just 3 weeks before spring training. Abrams stayed put and becomes the best trade Tubani never made in his first season with the Nationals. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. Life. Primetime Land Rush puts Texas on the TV map. Texas is riding high as Hollywood's go-to story setting, lassoing major series from two powerhouse TV franchises this spring. Yellowstone spin-off, Dutton Ranch, startled viewers by relocating Montana's royal couple, Rip Cole-Hauser and Beth Kelly Riley, to North Texas for the new Paramount Plus series that began May 15th. The Lone Star surprise continued on May 19th when ABC announced a new Grey's Anatomy spin-off headed for remote West Texas. That's right, the Shonda Rhimes series, famously set in Seattle's Gray Sloan Memorial Hospital, will see the upcoming show take place at a medical center in rural Texas. The unnamed spin-off, slated for mid-season 2027, is the first Grey's offspring not set on the West Coast, private practice, or in a major city, Station 19. That Grey's news was pretty huge, says Cindy McCreary, chair of the Department of Radio, Television, Film at the University of Texas at Austin. But we're seeing an increase in shows coming to Texas. There's so much diversity in terms of landscape and different industries. People want to tell stories from here right now. Yellowstone brought Landman Dutton Ranch to Texas. A major source of the TV love is, of course, the Yellowstone effect. Creator Taylor Sheridan's hit shows, including contemporary Western Yellowstone, have made rural set dramas irresistible for networks and streamers. Sheridan literally has moved his Universe production to Texas with his SGS Studios, a massive 450,000 square foot production campus outside Fort Worth that opened in 2025. Montana set shows still can be shot away from the Texas heat, including the snowstorm scene from 1923, as well as shows such as Lioness and Oklahoma's Tulsa King. To boot, Sheridan's story gaze has transferred to Texas as well, notably with the hit oil drama Landman, starring Billy Bob Thornton as an old company fixer, now running his family's company. Dutton Ranch seemingly was headed to Beth and Rip's new ranch in Dillon, Montana, after Yellowstone ended in 2024. 2 months before the series' release, however, executive producer-director Christina Alexander Voiros told USA Today that Dutton Ranch and the Duttons had moved to Texas. It turns out a devastating Montana fire sends Rip and Beth to their new life. The 1,500-mile location change was explained for story reasons, with the multi-generational Montana family now outsiders in a new gritty environment for their spin-off. The Dutton Ranch locations are not far from the studio in Sheridan's own West Texas ranches. The 600-acre Bosque Ranch in Weatherford and the historic 4 Sixes Ranch site of another possible spin-off series. Netflix's Ransom Canyon brings romance to Texas. Similar shows are moving into the Texas turf. Netflix contemporary romance Ransom Canyon, starring Josh Duhamel and Minka Kelly, Season 2 drops July 23rd, is shot in Netflix's studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but set in a fictional small town in Texas. Texas is such a ripe area to such shows. It gives that very Americana feeling that people are craving right now, says Ransom Canyon executive producer and showrunner April Blair. Texas is almost shorthand for the American experience. Though the Ransom Canyon book series by author Jody Thomas is set in Texas, Blair gives credit to TV's hottest creator for spearheading the Texas migration. Taylor Sheridan is a once-in-a-generation writer and creator, Blair says, and we're all jumping on the bandwagon in different ways. Texas Rich portrayed in Dallas, Hunting Wives, and Landman. TV viewers historically have enjoyed all type of Texas life, but they especially love the oil money. Dallas started that gushing on CBS in 1978, and Landman taps into this flashy fascination. Netflix's The Hunting Wives highlights big city Sophie O'Neill, Brittany Snow, entering the world of wealthy socialite wives in an East Texas oil community, led by Margot Banks, Maylin Ackerman. Season 2 of the viral hit has wrapped production with tax-friendly North Carolina serving as Maple Brook, Texas, and is due out later this year. Texas lawmakers increase the filmmaking incentives. Tired of New Mexico and North Carolina stealing their production dollars, Texas lawmakers are working to ensure more Texas series are shot in Texas. After high-profile lobbying campaigns by the likes of Hollywood stars Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, lawmakers approved a major increase in the state's film and TV incentive program last May. The new deal dramatically increases funding and production rebates up to 25% through 2035 for Texas productions. The 2025 brought significant changes, Stephanie Wallen, director of the Texas Film Commission, said in a statement. On screen and in real life, Texas is a magnet that attracts productions from all over the world. ABC has declined to say whether the new Grey's series will be shot in Texas or even who's leading the cast, with Houston-born executive producer and showrunner Meg Marinis. But the concept of a remote Texas medical clinic, which often is staffed by internationally recruited doctors and nurses, adds another level of rich potential storytelling. Moving to Texas has difficulties, however. Hauser spoke to USA Today about dealing with the weather, which can go from 118 degrees to snow in a heartbeat. Texas is a beast, he says. Then there are the snakes. Dutton Ranch director Voris estimated that 275 snakes were removed by wranglers during the filming. But Hauser was stoic about the threat when speaking to USA Today on the Dutton Ranch premiere red carpet, May 12th. The snakes don't bother me, Hauser said, and I don't bother them. Stage. Strangers become besties in real life. New York. Kids always know how to keep you humble. Just take it from Christiane Pitts, star of the delightful Broadway Meet Cute Two Strangers. Carry a Cake Across New York, which is vying for 8 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. In May, Pitts and her castmate, Sam Tutty, received their first Tony nominations for lead actress and actor, respectively. But Pitts' 3-year-old daughter, Zora, was none too impressed. I was so emotional, Pitts recalls with a laugh on a sunny afternoon, sharing cheese and pepperoni slices with Tutty at Ignazio's under the Brooklyn Bridge. I picked her up from school and was like, Zora, Mommy just got nominated for a Tony. She said, I don't like Tony, and ran off to do whatever it was she was doing. I was like, cool. This is the balance of making your dreams come true and totally facilitating someone else's life. But I know why she's proud of me. I know she's proud of me in her own way. Broadway's Two Strangers flips the rom-com on its head. Two Strangers is an intimate two-hander about a happy-go-lucky Brit named Dougal Tutty, who arrives in New York for the wedding of his father, whom he has never met. Robin Pitts, meanwhile, is the disillusioned sister of the bride, who's entrusted with picking Dougal up from the airport and begrudgingly becoming his tour guide. Over a whirlwind 48 hours, the improbable companions let their guards down and help each other work through personal hang-ups, all while transporting a wedding cake. Created by Jim Barn and Kit Buchanan, the impossibly sweet comedy is the only wholly original new musical nominated at this year's Tony Awards. In a season full of shows that are either ponderous or paper-thin, Two Strangers stands out for its deep sincerity and quietly profound connection between the two human beings. It dares the audience to listen and engage with only two people, says Tutty, who has been with the project since 2023. There are moments in the theater where you can hear a pin drop. It's such a joy as an actor to be like, I don't have to do this big 11 o'clock number for you to understand what I'm going through. Nothing's forced. It's all necessary. And while there is a will they or won't they spark between Robin and Dougal, romance isn't the driving engine of the story as the characters grapple with ambition, disappointment, and fractured family relationships. They're just regular people, and I think that's the reason why it's resonating with so many people from different walks of life. Pitts says, they feel very seen and safe in our little show. Pitts and Tutty, on the moment they became best friends. Pitts, 33, and Tutty, 28, were introduced during her audition. Because of her high heels, she towered over her future co-star, not the typically casting for a rom-com leading lady. I was looking up your nose. It was crazy, Tutty recalls with a grin. You thought that you weren't going to get it because I was too small. We had an awesome audition, great chemistry. The room was light and fun, Pitt adds. I was so confident that it was going to happen. I wasn't so confident that it was going to happen because I knew it was a romantic thing. But I left and was like, I know I'm going to see that little man in something. He's really good. For Tutty and director Tim Jackson, Christiane was the obvious choice, the actor says. Your attitude your attitude to work is the same as mine. We both know what we need as actors and to trust that the show requires. And then you said you liked one of my favorite films, Wind River. And I was like, oh, you're actually cool. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Oh, because I wasn't before then? Pitt's jokes with a playful eye roll. For her, their first real bonding moment was after a rigorous 3-day stretch of rehearsals. It was just us and an Uber, and I came to my spirit to ask him, could you ever see yourself getting in a cult? Pitts recalls. This man didn't know me, but I was so pleased with how brutally honest he answered the question, like, no, I'm not an idiot. What about you? I genuinely appreciated his attitude of, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. It allowed me to just be myself as well. The Tony Awards are a family affair and a dream come true. Tutty won an Olivier Award starring in Dear Evan Hansen in London's West End, although this is his first time living in the States and appearing on Broadway. As much as he appreciates New York's dollar slices and massive bagels, he's eager to be back in the UK. I will cry my eyes out when I go home, Tutty says. This has been the coolest experience of my life, but I'm also really pleased that this job has made me realize how much I love my family and friends and where I'm from. I'm trying to bring my girlfriend, my mom, and brother to the Tonys with me because this might literally never happen again. The Tony Awards will air from New York's Radio City Music Hall on June 7th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on CBS, and streaming on Paramount Plus. Attending drama school overseas, Tutty remembers watching the ceremony live on his laptop in the wee hours of the morning with a VPN. Pitts, meanwhile, didn't grow up watching the Tonys with her mom, but she has many other fond memories of enjoying the Oscars and BET Awards together. My mom is going to be my Tonys date, Pitts says. It's going to be overwhelming to be sitting in some velvet chair knowing the person that got me here is right there. I might not wear eyelashes. It may be too emotional. Over the years, she has performed in Broadway musicals such as A Bronx Tale and the short-lived King Kong. When I made my Broadway debut, I cried and cried because of my dream come true, and then closed the following week. There's this pressure, like you don't want to enjoy it too much. So for her, this Tony nomination is the first dream I've ever had come true that can't be taken away. I've never had that happen before. It's really special. McCartney strolls down Dungeon Lane. Seeing Paul McCartney charm on Saturday Night Live, help Stephen Colbert turn out the lights in the Ed Sullivan Theater, even pop up on non-octogenarian courting TikTok, felt more profound than mere album promotion. When Days We Left Behind, the first single from his 20th solo album, The Boys of Dungeon Lane, dropped in March, reaction was swift. Was this McCartney saying goodbye? Then came his first ever post-Beatles duet with Ringo Starr on Home to Us, and you could practically hear the proverbial orchestra readying the playoff music to one of, if not the most consequential careers in pop music. If these two legends the last men standing of the most influential band in music history, found the time to join talents again. Surely the end must be nigh, right? Is Paul saying goodbye? But reading deeper into the 14 songs on The Boys of Dungeon Lane, out now, it becomes clear that McCartney's reflective state is, yes, rooted in nostalgia, though not necessarily a swan song. Instead, it's McCartney at what he does best, maintaining his position as our gentle guide and eternal cheerleader, reassuring over strings and piano on Life Can Be Hard, and inviting us to keep nodding our heads to deceptively simple melodies that cling to our emotional core inside the chunky groove of Lost Horizon. His once supple voice, altered by age as well as by a lifetime dedicated to singing and performing, is a stark reminder of the passage of time. He is nothing if not realistic when singing. Nothing stays the same. No one needs to cry. Nothing can reclaim the days we left behind. Rocking while being introspective. It's okay that McCartney, who turns 84 June 18th, still has introspection to share. He should. But he also can glide from quietly plucked guitar strings to a roar of an electric guitar in the opening track, As You Lie There, co-written along with 4 other songs by album co-producer Andrew Watt, a legend whisperer a la Brandi Carlile and Elton John. McCartney's innate ability to uncork a bop such as Ripples on a Pond or the jaunty star-sharing Home to Us, two mates reminiscing with audible smiles and background vocal assist from the Pretenders' Chrissie Hynde, is undiminished. But so is his knack for contemplation, as might be expected from the guy who wrote The Long and Winding Road and Eleanor Rigby, as well as Penny Lane and Ooh-La Dee Ooh-La Da. Genius remains on new album. McCartney reaches that equilibrium on the album's final track, Mama Gets By. It's a fictional song, not about his beloved mother Mary, who died when he was 14, but still one saturated in pensiveness, minor piano chords, and quivering strings, arranged by Giles Martin and Ben Foster, as sumptuous as a movie score. It might seem a downer of a closer, this tale of a beleaguered wife married to a flop of a husband, but in typical McCartney fashion, he parts the clouds to spotlight the rainbow, singing in a voice reaching for closure. She's got her own philosophy of life. Even though he's complicated, she takes it in her stride. If this is McCartney's final, whether prompted by age or circumstance, it's true that, as Seals and Crofts once sang, we may never pass this way again. But how lucky we have been to live through McCartney's genius and for now still have that spirited guy always ready to strap on his bass and with a thumbs up and sideways smile. They said what? The Star's best quotes. My Tourette syndrome got so bad to the point where all of my doctors took my diagnoses away. He's like, I have no idea what you have, but you don't belong in society. You don't belong in college. You shouldn't get a job. You shouldn't work. You shouldn't drive. TLC personality Balin Dupre, on an episode of the Howie Mandel Does Stuff podcast. The Balin Out Loud reality star and Tourette's awareness advocate, 23, said the neurologist rescinded his initial diagnosis before her family found out he didn't specialize in movement disorders. She received a proper diagnosis months later. It's your birthday. Who's celebrating today? Actor Stacy Keach turns 85. Actor Jerry Mathers, 78. Activist academic Cornel West, 73. Comedian actor Dana Carvey, 71. Bassist Michael Steele, 71. Singer Tony Hadley, Spandau Ballet, 68. TV host Andy Cohen, 58. Rapper Be Real, really Cypress Hill, turns 56. Comedian, actor, TV host Wayne Brady, 54. Actor Justin Long, 48. Drummer Fab Moretti, 46. Actor, comedian, rapper Aquafina, 38. Horoscope. Aries, March 21st to April 19th. Finally, some credit. As the Sun and Saturn harmonize this evening, you get the respect you deserve. Taurus, April 20th to May 20th. Getting rid of one thing creates space for another. This includes negative moods and attitudes. Gemini, May 21st to June 21st. Reaching a personal milestone. As the Sun and Saturn harmonize, others acknowledge your leadership credentials. Finally. Cancer, June 22nd to July 22nd. Hard at work, discipline pays off in a behind-the-scenes matter as the Sun harmonizes with Saturn. Leo, July 23rd to August 22nd. Stretch a little further today. You may not feel especially adventurous, but foregoing your comfort zone is a good idea. Virgo, August 23rd to September 22nd. Double down on a goal and don't forget to loop in your allies. Libra, September 23rd to October 23rd. Finally, a breakthrough with a partner. The Sun's connection to Saturn shows that sticking it out was the right call. Scorpio, October 24th to November 21st. Seeing results? Hard work and discipline transform you from a hard rock into a diamond. Sagittarius, November 22nd to December 21st. Do you want more out of this relationship? Be real with your love interest. Capricorn, December 22nd to January 19th. Rewarded for your diligence as the Sun and Saturn harmonize. Paying attention to details gets you the results you were after. Aquarius, January 20th to February 18th. Making time for what matters. That means less work, more play, as the Sun harmonizes with Saturn. Pisces, February 19th to March 20th. Perseverance paying off. A financial, energetic investment bears fruit. You have been listening to a reading of USA Today for Tuesday, June 2nd. We read from USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Barbara.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 7 of 1929 by Andrew Ross Sorkin. At 3 o'clock, we have the National Geographic, and at 4 o'clock, a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.